Today, we're going to talk about mental health. Specifically, we're going to tackle some of the really dangerous myths that are still floating around out there. It's time to separate the facts from the fiction, because that fiction, well, it can cause some real harm. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let me just start by asking you a question. When you hear that phrase, mental illness, what's the very first picture that pops into your head? Seriously, just take a second, be honest with yourself. For a lot of people, it's a very specific, kind of media-driven stereotype. Does that image look, well, something like this? The idea of someone who's visibly unwell, maybe someone we'd use a word like crazy to describe. You know, it's an incredibly common image, but it's also incredibly misleading. Yeah, that stereotype misses the reality completely, because the reality is this number, nearly 1 billion. According to the World Health Organization, that's how many people around the world are living with a mental health condition. This isn't some small fringe group. We're talking more than 1 out of every 8 people on the planet. Our neighbors, our friends, our family, maybe even us. The sheer scale of it is just staggering.
So, keeping that reality in mind, let's start to really unpack what we think we know. And we'll begin with probably the most common myth of them all.
Let's just tackle this one head on. This idea that having a mental health condition is the same as being crazy or unstable or dangerous. I mean, that word has been used for centuries, and it really comes from a place of fear and a total lack of understanding. And it is just fundamentally wrong. The truth is actually a lot simpler and, well, a lot less dramatic. Mental illness isn't some kind of verdict on your character. It's a health condition, plain and simple. It affects your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. The same way diabetes affects your pancreas or arthritis affects your joints. It's about your health, not who you are as a person. And you know, this kind of language, it does real damage. Words like crazy create so much stigma that they actually stop people from getting help. They force people to hide what they're going through out of fear. So the real takeaway here is to see it for what it is, not a personal flaw, but a state of vulnerability that deserves our support and compassion. And that little shift in how we see things, from a flaw to a vulnerability, is so important for our next point. This one tackles a myth that tries to tie a health condition directly to a person's character. Oh man, you've probably heard this one a million times, right? Maybe you've even thought it yourself. It's this belief that if someone's depressed or anxious, it's because they're just not strong enough to handle life, that they just need to get over it or toughen up. But the reality has absolutely nothing to do with willpower. Mental illnesses are really complex medical conditions. They're caused by this intricate mix of our genetics, our biology, our environment, and our life experiences. It's no more a choice than developing allergies is. Let's just try to reframe this for a second. Would you ever look at someone who's managing diabetes or recovering from a heart attack and call them weak? No way, of course not. We see it as a health battle that they are fighting bravely. Mental illness deserves that exact same respect. In fact, it's the total opposite of weakness. Acknowledging that you're struggling and then finding the guts to actually ask for help, that's not weakness. That is a massive act of strength and courage. This brings us to another really damaging myth, one that can just steal hope from people right when they need it the most. It's all about what the future holds. So this is the myth of permanence. It's this really pessimistic, hopeless idea that getting a mental health diagnosis is a life sentence, that things will never, ever get better. And it's a belief that can make people just want to give up before they've even started. But thankfully, it is completely false. People can and they absolutely do recover. With the right support, with the right treatment at the right time, the vast majority of people can learn to manage their symptoms, get back a high quality of life, and really thrive. And you know, recovery isn't just one thing. It's often a whole toolbox of approaches. It might combine therapy, lifestyle changes like exercise, strong support systems. The goal isn't always a cure, but it's about successful management, just like you'd manage any other chronic health condition. Okay, for our last section, we're going to challenge a really common assumption about who experiences mental illness. And I think this one might really shift your perspective. When we think about things like depression or anxiety, our minds tend to jump to adults dealing with mortgages and jobs and all that. We rarely think about kids and teenagers. This myth kind of suggests that mental health issues are something that only start when you hit the pressures of adulthood. But here's a pretty shocking and vital truth. A full 50%, that's half, of all lifetime mental illnesses start showing signs by age 14, and that number jumps to 75%, three-quarters, by age 24. This isn't just an adult problem. It's a human problem that very often begins early in life.
And that is why this is so important. Identifying these challenges early on and giving kids and teens the support they need can literally change the entire course of their lives. It's about giving them the tools they need to grow and thrive before these problems get more severe. So let's just quickly recap the new perspective we've put together. First, it's a health condition, not a character flaw. Second, it is never a sign of weakness. Third, recovery is absolutely possible. And fourth, it can affect anyone at any age. These are the facts we need to hold on to. If you just take one single thing away from all of this today, please let it be this. Reaching out for help, whether it's for you or for someone you love, is one of the bravest, most courageous things a person can possibly do. And that really brings us to the final and most important question of all. Now that you're armed with the facts, what are you going to do to help change the conversation? In your family, with your friends, in your community. Just think about it. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.